everybody. Another year. And I'm so happy that we're going to do it a little differently this year. Good news and bad news. Bad news is I'm not going to give my annual talk. The good news is that I asked our dear friend and partner, Alan Weitzman, to give this year's message, which will be a little bit more than a message. And some of you know, Alan, this is going to be Alan's last official lunch as a partner, because Alan will be retiring a year from November 1st. That's past November 1st. He has reached that time in his life, even though he doesn't look it or act it. So I thought that we would have Alan give some remarks, and from what I understand, and the reason we're starting so early is, from what I understand, he has prepared remarks. They're 84 pages, single space. There is continuing education credit available, and ethics, and so I just want to personally say that I've been at Proskauer 11 years, and Alan, since day one, has been a true friend, before anything else, a true partner, and he is the consummate Proskauer partner. Yeah, he's also a consummate Proskauer golfer too. I played golf with him a number of times, but he is the consummate professional, and he eats, lives, breathes Proskauer for a long time. It's been his only home in the legal world, and I know Al has been very grateful since he joined it, and he moved down same year I did, in 1993, and without further ado, Al. Where's the screen?
I have no PowerPoint. It's not single space. It's large enough for me to be able to read it. Thank you, David. So on November 1st, last November 1st, I started a farewell tour. And I planned several stops along the way. And today's luncheon was not really part of that plan until David called me and offered me the opportunity to make this one of my several stops, and that means a lot to me, David, I think. But before I make this all about me, I'm going to honor the tradition of what we normally do on this big occasion, and I want to talk about the people who have joined us in this past year, those who have reached an anniversary milestone, and members of our Proskauer family who had an important lifetime event. There's one tradition I will not follow in your footsteps or your footsteps. I'm not going to say something that was supposed to be funny and then turn around to me and say, Alan, was it okay I said that?
And by the way, there is an exemption for today's lunch. Anybody can say anything about Alan, so don't worry about it.
So without further ado, here's this year's list of recognition. So under new hires, Allison, thank you for joining us, and because I'm speaking so long, you don't have to stand up on the table to sing your own song. I have one more under new additions. It's a little bit of a stretch, but Nate. I think it takes guts to come back, and I'm proud of it. Service anniversaries. Donna, 5 years. Katrina, 5 years. Liz Torres, who's not here, 5 years. Christine, 5 years. Andrea, 10 years. Evina, 10 years. My Liz, 15 years. George, who just walked out the door, 20 years tomorrow. I'm going to give him the 20 years. Liz Osborne, 25. Liz, you, Al, and Matt, are the only ones who've been here longer than me. That's great.
Wow.
Personal milestones. Katrina was married. Michael has gotten engaged. John's gotten engaged. Liz Torres had a new granddaughter. And last but not least, my Shay has been promoted to the exalted position of Labor Paralegal Specialist, a specialist title that is held by only 3 paralegals out of over 100 in the entire firm. Congratulations. So I sat in on my first labor law class in the spring of 1965. I was only a junior in high school. The class was in Ithaca, New York. It was taught in Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations. It was the sophomore course on labor law. Kirk Hanslow, a former UAW lawyer, was the professor, and he was teaching Buffalo Linen about defensive lockouts. I was 16 years old. It was the single most transformative event in my life. It was one that instilled a love for labor law, that has not only enriched my life in many ways, but labor law has become my life and will remain my life for the next 320 days. Today, after tens of thousands of billable hours, I am confronting the day where I will have to step aside. Over the years, there have been dozens of union elections, unfair labor practices, depositions, arbitrations, hearings, trials, and more settlements than I could possibly remember. I've had 3 strikes in my career. One was with the longshoremen when we lived in New York. They threatened to picket our wedding. They did. The second was with water utility workers in Queens, New York, and the most important one was when the employees of the New York Stock Exchange walked out on strike and tried to shut down the financial markets as we know them. But after 1 week, when they couldn't shut down the markets, they came back to work and they didn't have a contract. I also look back on some of my hallmark land court cases where 3 of my reported decisions have made significant changes in the law, and coincidentally, those 3 cases correspond with my major areas of practice. One's a labor law case, one's an employment law case, and one's a non-compete case. Now, the labor case, Levitt's Furniture, I don't know if any of you remember Levitt's Furniture, but I wasn't even living here, but I was coming here part-time, and I got a phone call from Levitt's, and it turned into a major NLRB case where the board held that an employer could withdraw recognition from a union based on a good faith doubt without holding an election. My non-compete case is a case that I argued before the Florida Supreme Court and won. The court held that a successor employer could enforce a non-compete against an employee who worked for another company, even if the contract did not have a successors and assigns clause. But the most significant case that I placed my name to is a case where I wrote the amicus brief on behalf of the Society of Human Resource Management for the United States Supreme Court. And the case of Farragher versus the city of Boca Raton led to an affirmative defense that can fairly be called the most significant change in employment law in the last 20 years. And also, coincidentally, those 3 cases occurred during my tenure in the Boca Raton office. David said I've been a lifer. I've had a dream job. I've been a summer associate, an associate, and a partner in the #1 labor employment law department in the country. And thanks to Al and Chris Wheeler, who orchestrated my transfer from the New York office to the Boca office, I've also had the benefit of becoming a big fish in a small pond. But a successful career does not come without the help of an extraordinary team that has surrounded me. As my father, may he rest in peace, would say, it's time to tip my cap to all of you, and some of you in particular. And I'll start with Bill. Bill, you rock. You make our office roll. You and Liz continue to make my annual seminar run seamlessly, and I never cease to be amazed by your brilliance. Thank you. Karen, even though you don't work for me, you work for the lawyers who work for me, which means that there's some org chart someplace that has a dotted line from Weitzman to Malloy. I counted on you and relied on you to have my back, and you have never failed me. Thank you. Now comes the tough part. Liz, we've been together for 15 years. After interviewing you via video conference, you were and are exactly the person to be the face of my practice. You're great with clients, they love you. You have unbelievable organizational skills. You handled recruitment when we had recruiting. You handled the summer program when we had the summer program. You still run my annual seminar. You were one person, and you did what we have entire departments for in New York in all those areas. We tease each other that you're my office wife, but to me it's not a joke. Our devotion to each other has been the hallmark of an interpersonal relationship that, without vows, has the sanctity of a marriage made in heaven. I'm so blessed that you came into my life. And if I can use Liz as a mentoring moment for all of you, clients ask me, and they ask Liz, how long have you been Alan's secretary? The clients, our longevity is a statement of character that you should all aspire to, and I'm sure Al and David will tell you the same thing. Shed, you are truly one of a kind. I don't care that there are 3 other paralegals in the firm that have the special title, and you're only one of the 3, because as far as I'm concerned, you're the best of the best. You're the quarterback of our practice. Everything begins and ends with you. You make us perfect. And that's worth repeating. You make us perfect. I never, ever, ever lose sleep over even the possibility that you were anything less than perfect. Putting that kind of trust in anyone is so rare these days. And last but not least, Raton. You're my right hand, my brain trust, my colleague, my friend. Met you when you were applying for a summer associate position. You were number 1 in your class. I was impressed with your brains. My impressions then turned out to be aspirations for you that you have exceeded by far. As I have written every year in your evaluation, any of my labor partners in New York can pick any other associate that they want, and I'll take you, and I'll beat them. Raton, you are truly a distinguished lawyer. When I offered you a full-time associate position, you told me that it was the happiest day of your life. I hope that our time together has lived up to your expectations. Your success and your happiness have been and shall remain a priority to me. The transition of firm clients is a core responsibility of our partners as we approach retirement. And over the past 2 or 3 years, I have followed that tradition so that when it comes time for me to truly step aside, you will be welcomed by our clients. Raton, I want you to know this. If I had to pick one lawyer to spend the last year side by side with me as I approach my retirement, I would point to you and only you. For me, this coming year will be one filled with nostalgia, sentiment, and celebration. But I cannot conclude without mentioning the 2 holes in my resume. First is I've never argued in the United States Supreme Court. It was one of my goals. I'll have to settle for arguing in the Florida Supreme Court and the 4 amicus briefs I filed with the Supreme Court on behalf of SHRM, and thereby became the voice of the human resource profession in the Supreme Court. The second hole in my resume is the fact that I have not discovered a cure for lupus. I would have given up all of this in a New York minute if I could have just waved the magic wand and Regina's 20 years of suffering would be over. But even with all of Regina's infrequent ups, and all too frequent and sometimes devastating downs, she's been an amazing wife on our shared journey during my 43-year legal career. she knew that the law was my life. And so she never, ever complained about my working late, my missing dinners, my canceling vacations, or my being out of town on birthdays, anniversaries, or Valentine's Day. Regina enabled me to be me. She gave me the gift of peace, which is the greatest gift any person can bestow upon another person. And now, after never complaining, Regina has provided the answer to the question, Alan, what will you do with yourself when you retire? The answer is, Regina is counting the days. Regina can't wait for me to come home and have me all to herself. We have a lot of lost time to make up for, and with lupus, I don't know how much time we will have to cram that into. But whatever that is, and how long we have to do that, that's what I will start doing on November 1, 2017. In the meantime, this is not goodbye. My team and I have ahead of us on our calendars more work than you can imagine. I assure you, I will not be going on semi-retirement for the next 320 days. May God bless you all with the happiness that I have found in practicing a noble profession. Thank you.
Taking over everybody.